Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee on this Sunday, and we're going to take a look at what's going to be happening for later today and tonight into Monday morning, and see what's up for the middle of the week and the end of the week. I just want to let you know there's been a data outage at the National Weather Service, which means we do not have the new GFS to look at, which I think might be a good thing because that have one less model to confuse everybody. One of the models that we haven't been able to use too often because we haven't had any reason to use it for is the RGEM model. The RGEM is the Canadian model, the short-range Canadian model, and it unlike the global model or the GGEM, which tends to get very squirrely, especially in the long range, the RGEM does remarkably well in its 48-hour time frame because that's all it goes out to. And I just want to show you what it's doing for tomorrow. So here we are at 10 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we start to see what looks like a expanding area of steady, let's call it light but steady snow across Pennsylvania, right down to the Maryland border, to the border of New Jersey, into southern New York State, and you can see it extends back through Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan. And I'll expand the region out in a second so we get a better view. And then at 7 o'clock, it's snowing throughout much of the northern part of New Jersey, and maybe even down into southern areas of what I would consider central New Jersey. Long Island, though there's a little bit of a gap, so it's kind of splotchy here. And then you have the steady snow to the west. And here's 10 o'clock tomorrow night, steady snow over New Jersey and New York City, parts of Long Island getting it into the Hudson Valley. Still no sign of any rain, as it's all snow throughout Pennsylvania except in the southeast, which there's very little. So the warm front's kind of setting up right about here. This is why this is not going to wind up being a huge deal for us. It might be a bigger deal for places well north, because of where the warm front is setting up. And it's setting up, like right here, okay? If the warm front were setting up down here, it would give you that much more room. But because it's setting up so close, the real hefty precipitation is going to set up in this quadrant up in this area. It's actually going to shift further north than that. So it kind of gets going when it's over us, but then it really plays itself out when it moves just a little bit further to the north. So here we are now I'm going to have to let my dog out, so you just got to give me 1 second here. Hang on. You get all sorts of real life things that happen while I'm cutting videos. So here we are now at 1 in the morning, snowing in North Jersey, going to a mix at New York City and parts of Long Island, most of Long Island in rain, with the Hudson Valley snow, Connecticut snow. 4 a.m., the rain snow line starts to push a little north, but it's still mostly snow in North Jersey, and these darker blues are showing up in the Hudson Valley and on up into the Catskills, and then it goes to all rain. That rain snow line pushes all the way up to Poughkeepsie and further north, and then by 10 o'clock in the morning, it's almost all done, and we're finished. Probably around lunchtime it's done, and weather conditions to begin to improve after that. As far as the snowfall is concerned, and we'll show you what it does for snowfall, see, it kind of lines it up a little bit differently than the other models. It has a coating to 1 inch over Long Island, basically a coating away from the Jersey Shore, and then as you go northwestward, you start to get into 3-4 inch amounts in northwest New Jersey and in the Hudson Valley. Especially as you get up into Putnam and Dutchess County. This actually, to me, makes a lot of sense in terms of what it shows. Now, for those of you who have interest in other places, let me widen out, and you can take a look here. This is going to leave some pretty decent snows over the northern third of Ohio, of looks like 6 inches plus, back over in the northern half of Indiana, the southern half of Michigan, into northwestern Pennsylvania, and then you have some, isolated 4 or 5 inch amounts across Pennsylvania. As you go from south to north, the amounts increase, and obviously, even producing a coating in parts of Maryland and even into Delaware. So it'll be interesting to see if it winds up happening that far south in terms of putting down a few flakes. Usually what I like to think is that in the darkest of the dark blue, which is only, a couple of hundredths of precip, this is where you see flakes fall down and kind of collect in the pavement, and that's about it. And you have to get at least up into the second or third gradation of the blue in order to start seeing, something on the order of a coating to an inch. So that's the RGEM model. The NAM, tonight was for the first, it's starting to bring snows a little further south in terms of the, some measurable snow over Long Island and into northern New Jersey. But, it doesn't really go that far south. But up until a couple of runs ago, it wasn't even bringing that line that far south. But still, the same idea. Most of the snow's north and west, and it has less across northern Ohio. Still has some decent amounts back up in northern Indiana and over into southern Michigan. We're going to use the Canadian model tonight because that's the one we got. And then I'm going to have to cut it short because we got to let the dog in. So let me show you what the Canadian does, because we have this first wave that goes out. Now, one of the arguments going forward as regards to another wave developing with the Arctic front, which comes through, and the Canadian has it, but it seems to be doing it a little faster here. So it has some snow here Tuesday night into Wednesday morning with a weak wave. Not that much. I mean, this would be very, very light if it were real. So we're going to have to see if the European does the same idea, because after that, we just get overwhelmed by cold air. And then as we go into next weekend, low pressure comes out of the Gulf states and creates the possibility of snow and ice. And this is actually, if we look back, I want to show you the Canadian from this afternoon because it's telling what it's doing here. The Canadian from this afternoon had this wrapped up gale center up in northwestern Ohio with cold air wedged down the Appalachians, which is what you want to see, by the way. This is a classic setup as you have, ridging this big high, this cold high kind of takes its spot up in Maine, and cold air is wedged down on the east side of the Appalachians. So as a result, you wind up with very cold air at the surface anyway, getting pretty far south, and that's where the pink is, and that would be an ice storm situation developing for the Appalachians if that was correct. Now the new Canadian run doesn't have that wrapped up low, but has a flatter look to it. So as a result, it stays colder. But you can see how far south the ice is being shown here. It stays colder and actually produces some decent snows for New Jersey and for eastern Pennsylvania, southern New England out of this. So, is it right? I don't know. That's the big question as far as this goes. I have to let the dog back in. Here we go. Here we go. Now he's back inside. Okay. You know what it is? It's after 1 o'clock in the morning when I'm cutting this, and I don't want to have to cut it 3 times. So let's see how much of the European we have so far, and we don't. We only have the very first panel of the European, so that's not going to be of help. And we do not have the new GFS, so that's not going to be of help. And there really isn't anything much else that we could look at from that respect. So let's go back to the Canadian real fast, and I'll show you, and then we'll show the upper air. So here's the Canadian on the wider view, and then you have that big cold high that builds in, and gradually that high finds its way up east of the Great Lakes, goes into the classic, what would we call the damming position, and you can see all that. It's got freezing rain down into North Georgia, South Carolina, most of North Carolina, eastern Kentucky, eastern Tennessee, and into West Virginia, southern West Virginia and southwest Virginia. Then up it goes with a low that's in the that goes to the lakes but redevelops right here. So that cuts off the warm air. Instead of having warm air coming all the way up, that cold air is going to be more important, especially away from the coast. And then out that goes, and now we're into the week of December 19th, where it's basically cold and dry. There's some other kind of trough here in the eastern states. So let's take a look at the jet stream pattern and see what that does. And indeed, that's exactly what it has. Let me widen out so we can get a view of the flow here. Okay, so it's a very cold look here. You got this vortex coming down. One of the problems for Wednesday is that with that system to the south, you really can't find it. There's no dent. It's not like here where you have an obvious trough, or here or out here. The flow is so dominant from around that vortex that you can't really pick out that little short wave that's going to make that wave on the Arctic front. So that gives you very limited. You're working with very limited stuff here from that respect. Now, as we move forward through time on the jet stream, that vortex pulls out. Here's the system that's going to be for next weekend, and it's right here. You don't have much blocking, so that high that's out here at the surface is eventually going to move out. It's the question of how fast it does, and oftentimes when you're dealing with Arctic air that has Arctic origin in it, it tends to hang around a lot longer in the east, even if you don't have ideal wind conditions to hold it in. So then that trough swings by, and then you're left with this. Now, I'm going to be curious to see in the long range if the setup is like this. Once this trough pulls out, it may try and warm up a bit in the eastern part of the U.S. I'm not 100% sure, but judging from what this looks like, is this going to be the last one in this series, and then we're going to have a period of transition? Is something else happening in the long term? I don't know. This is day 10 on the Canadian. It's a squirrely enough model as it is, and we don't even know if what it's showing for next weekend is indeed going to be the way it comes out. So let's call it a night, and you can check out the latest posts on meteorologistjoechaffee.com. I'll be posting all day tomorrow as this first event goes by. And download my app and subscribe to my forecast. The app is free. For the subscription is just 99 cents a month, and it covers New York, New Jersey, Long Island, Pennsylvania, southern New England, the lower Hudson Valley, New York City. And if you're in that area, you can subscribe to my forecast. If you're in another area, there are other forecasters available. And as I said also on my website, there's a little tip jar. If you want to buy me a cigar every once in a while, I would be most appreciative. And by the way, once again, if you're new to this YouTube channel, please subscribe to it. That subscription is free, and my YouTube videos will always be free.